Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I convert my lawn from looking like this to this with very little spend. This lawn has always been difficult to maintain. It's a Bellway special, so it looked amazing when it was first laid, then it has been downhill from there ever since. Before I resorted to the nuclear option of digging it all up and starting again, I thought I'd give it one last chance to see if I could revive it. I bought some moss killer and lawn tonic from Amazon. The 2.5 litre bottle from Maxi Crop is around £15. I've put links to everything I've used for this renovation in the description if you want to perform the same on your lawn. To apply this product, you simply dilute it as per the instructions depending on whether you are watering or spraying it onto the lawn. I used a garden sprayer to apply it. I bought a Spear & Jackson 5 litre sprayer for £11 from Amazon. Using the recommended sprayer concentration of 10:1, I filled it up with 4.5 litres of water, then added 450 ml of the moss killing solution. The cap can be used to measure 30 ml, so I applied 15 capfuls to the sprayer. This is what it looked like before applying the moss killer. As soon as I'd covered both front and back lawns, you could see the moss killer starting to work its magic by turning the moss brown. This is after 30 minutes. And this is what it looked like after a couple of hours. I didn't realise there was that much moss in the lawn. This is where I'd originally assumed I'd be finishing, then came to the realisation that this was only the start. I was intending to leave the dead moss in situ and just mow the lawn as usual until it had all gone, but with so much of it, I needed to see how much grass actually remained. Before starting the scarifying process, I mowed the lawn. You can see here how much moss and thatch just appears out of what looks like green grass. After making the first pass with the scarifier, I then used the mower to collect it all. When you scarify, expect your lawn to look much worse before it looks better. Even after using the scarifier, you can see there's still a lot of moss and thatch in the lawn. After reading up about scarifying, it's recommended to make 2 passes. Pick one direction, for example left to right, then afterwards go over it again at a 45-degree angle, for example top left to bottom right. You don't go left to right and then top to bottom. So I went over it again off camera. You can see here the lawn no longer looks as green as it did before I started. Well, this is 1 week on after the second attempt at scarifying. The garden's looking better. The next stage is to aerate the garden to allow the water to soak into the soil properly rather than sitting on top of the grass. You can see here at the bottom of the garden, the soil is damp, but it is very squishy. I can stick my thumb in there. So this top section here, although it looks damp, it's rock solid. Hopefully the aeration will help allow the water to soak in. I've never aerated a garden before, so I bought this Wallenzi aerator from Amazon for under £30. I've made a separate video reviewing this lawn aerator if you want to find out more about it and how well it performed. It has tapered cones, which should mean it can eject the soil cores without them getting stuck and clogging it up. If you're like me and new to aeration, the principle is you make holes in the lawn so that when it rains, water can soak into the ground instead of sitting on the top of the grass and running off. This in turn is meant to help the grass grow longer roots, making it more resilient to the seasons. To use this aerator, you simply stand on the foot bar and push it into the ground. The spikes are hollow, so the soil core is removed, which works better than previous generation aerators which used a solid spike. Because previous generation aerators were solid spikes, they would compact the soil around it, reducing its effectiveness. The instructions recommend to stagger the holes by 6 to 12 inches. I'm spacing them out about 8 inches, roughly the same distance between the two spikes on the aerator. You can see the cores being ejected from the aerator as you make each new hole. So, after going over half of the back garden lawn, I'm going to pick up the soil cores before starting on the other half. So a bucket full is about 40 square metres worth of lawn if you're spacing them out at the recommended width. Now the aerator has had some use, it has started to clog on occasions. It did this 5 times during the second half of the lawn. To unclog the aerator, I'm using a screwdriver or thick, long Allen key to push them out from the bottom. Remember to wear gardening gloves so you don't accidentally impale yourself like I did. Now it's onto the front lawn.
Love was holding all the cards and always kept me in the dark. I never thought I could shake this heartache until
This time I had a little helper to pick up the soil cores. who then wanted to try making the holes because that looked like more fun.
Life is good, yeah. Yeah, in my darkest times, you got me feeling like I've been walking on air. Left all my worries and cares. I've got no burdens around you. I don't care who knows I love you. 'Cause I've been so lost without you. And in my darkest times, you got me feeling like life is good, yeah. Life is good, yeah. Yeah, in my dark.
And after picking up the rest of the soil cores, I've now got perfectly spaced holes throughout the entire lawn. So that was tiring work. Overall it went well. It took me 4 hours I think to do the garden. A few injuries, obviously took a bit of skin off my knuckle when I should have been wearing gloves to clean out the aerator. I've also got a few blisters from handles again. I think that was partly because I wasn't using gloves to start with, and then when I was using gloves my hands were getting very hot inside the gloves. I was also trying to do it as quickly as possible, which is why I'm sweating. I think it would have been a lot easier to have broken this task up into sessions, maybe doing a section at a time and leaving a period in between just to rest. Right, so we'll now see what happens after the lawn's been aerated for a couple of weeks. We'll see what difference it makes. So after a couple of weeks the lawn is now looking like this. Here's what it looked like before, a marked improvement. However, there is still some thatch remaining on some of the worst affected areas. The main part of the front lawn looks patchy near where I'm stood and is better the closer it gets to the house. The rear lawn, where it was worst, doesn't look good at all. All that remains is dead thatch and moss, no sign of grass at all. I'm now going to have to reseed because this is not going to improve on its own. The ground is dry and rock solid. You can even still see the scratch marks from the Scarify blades a couple of weeks after removing the moss and thatch. There hasn't been much rainfall since I aerated the lawn. Maybe this will improve once it does start raining. Before seeding, I'm going to give it a quick mow, because I'll not be able to do it once the new seed goes down for several weeks. The daffodils are dead. I know you're not meant to cut them until they've wilted, but I couldn't be bothered. Now to trim the back lawn in preparation for seeding. Before putting down some grass seed, I'm first going to rake the worst areas to break up the ground and pull up some more of the remaining moss. This is a prime example of what to expect with Bellway's definition of topsoil. This isn't the first time I've pulled out fist-sized rocks half an inch under the grass bed. Another fist-sized rock. Now I'm watering the ground before applying the grass seed. I ordered a 5 kilogram bag of hardwearing grass seed from Amazon, which cost £27. I've put a link in the description if you want to see what I ordered. I'm first using up the remains of a smaller bag I had prior to ordering what I needed for this project. You can apply grass seed with a spreader, which is probably more efficient. However, I'm putting it down by hand, and generously so, because I don't want to be overseeding multiple times afterwards. You can see here a close-up of how much seed I've put down. Next, applying the topsoil. I popped to my local garden centre to pick up this topsoil because it is surprising how much you actually need to use. These were about £4 a bag. However, depending on how much you might need, it might be worth buying a 500 litre bulk bag. Bulk bags per litre can be about half the price of buying the equivalent amount in these smaller 20 litre bags. Putting topsoil over the seed primarily helps it to germinate, but an added benefit is that it helps to hide it from birds that see it as food. Now all the topsoil is covering the grass seed, the next step is to lightly press it down and give it a good water. And this is what it looks like after applying and watering for the first time. See now this is about 5:30 and the fence is putting most of this part of the garden in shade. The temperature today was between 11 and 20 degrees and there's still a bit of moisture in the soil, the topsoil that I put on, but we'll give it another water just to help the seeds grow. This is now 3 days after seeding and the existing grass is starting to poke through the topsoil. There has been a little bit of rain today, not enough, as you can see it's a little dry, so I'll give it another water. Greedy pigeons aren't helping here. They don't even budge unless you're within arm's reach. I've given it another water and now you can see new shoots starting to show above the topsoil. I know it's gonna be alright. Here's a wider view of what it currently looks like. Local wildlife doing its bit to help again. If you don't have room to grow. This is 11 days after seeding and the shoots are coming along nicely. Are you up for seeing where Some areas don't appear to be growing as quickly as the rest of the shoots. I'm not sure why.
You know, my sparrow, the cage is not your home.
After little to no rain over the last couple of weeks, the garden got a deluge of rain, which was enough to saturate the lowest part of the lawn. I don't think anyone could expect the aeration to have prevented this. However, 15 minutes later and the standing water has soaked into the ground, which I'm sure is an improvement over what it used to do before I aerated it. It has now been about 3 weeks after seeding and the lawn is looking a lot thicker. There are a couple of patches nearer to the camera that will need overseeding, but looking closer you can see the shoots have started to split out now they are maturing. It's been about a month since I planted the seeds. It's very hot. I think I need to leave it a little bit longer before I do its first cut. They sort of normally recommend 6 to 8 weeks. So there's at least another couple of weeks to go, but let's examine the condition of the lawn and see what it looks like now. Generally speaking, this looks really good. There are a few areas like this where it's patchy. The grass is growing, like you can see here, but it hasn't grown as quick as the rest of the lawn. There are also lots of weeds that need to be pulled out. It's been hot over the last week, so I've been watering it daily to make sure the grass doesn't wither. I'm going to take out the weeds first before giving it another water. This is the technique I currently use to pull out weeds. The ground is still soft, so it is easier than usual. I use a trowel to push down the side of the weed, then do the other side, which loosens the soil around it. You can then ease it out, being careful not to snap the root. And some are harder to remove than others. It's tedious work, but needs must.
Any season we go through, I'll be fine as long as I'm with you. Heaven knows, running round the world with you. When you smile, I smile too. How I ever made it without you. Heaven knows, heaven knows. Changing, better get out soon. Don't let go of my hand, no matter what you do. Well, I'm here for you, through the thick and thin. We're on a winding road that never ends. Any place we wander to, any season we go through, I'll be fine as long as I'm with you. Heaven knows, heaven knows.
With all of the weeds removed, I'll give it another quick water. So it's been about 6 weeks now since I originally put the grass seed down. There's been a lot of rain in the last fortnight, so I've not been able to cut it before now. It's a bit longer than I was hoping before I gave it its first cut. So let's take a closer look, see what it looks like, and then we'll see what it looks like after it's been cut. So the line is roughly here, where the grass seed and topsoil was put down. Some of this was grass before, and I think this is where it's not as high. Towards the back, where there was absolutely no grass. That does look a lot thicker and taller, but there are still, like here, there are still some gaps where it's still quite thin compared to and a bit patchy, so it might need some overseeding. So all in all, this is pretty good effort. There's a few patchy areas like here where it could, I think overseeding would just thicken it up a little bit more. But generally speaking, it's got good coverage. I've scalped it a little bit here. I couldn't adjust the mower onto a higher setting. And then in the very corner, this is where the grass grew tallest. It's quite thick there, so again, it needs overseeding around here, but I didn't have chance to cut it with the weather being as bad as it was. It's been a couple of weeks since I did the first cut, and it's grown quite a bit in that time, so I'm going to give it another trim and then I'm going to overseed it. There's a patch of coarse grass here. I'm going to dig that out first. I'm going to use the same technique as before, where I water the ground, apply the seed, then cover it in topsoil to help hide it from the birds. First the water, next the seed. I'm putting a generous amount down to hopefully help it germinate.
Bad girls. Good boy, stay away from them bad girls. Them bad girls, yeah. The good ones just can't get me high, so I'll be falling all my life for one of these bad girls. You bad girl, but you do
now the topsoil to cover it.
dummy, 'cause she taking all my money, but I make it rain like 24/7. If it mean a little time with you, break my heart and leave me hurt. The next one just gonna do me worse. So if they all no good, I'll just be bad with you. 'Cause my mother told me as a child, boy,
And finally another water.
you might just end up getting burned. And I know the wicked never rest, so I always try my best. But there's some lessons hard for me to learn. Like good boys don't play with bad girls. Good boys stay away from them bad girls. Them bad girls. The good ones just can't get me high, so I be falling all my life for one of these bad girls. You bad girl, but you do me so good.
It is now 10 days after overseeding. You can see the new shoots coming through here. Obviously weeds don't have a problem growing. Some of the topsoil has clumped and been pushed up by the grass growing underneath it. If you fan it with your hand, it breaks up easily and falls back down between the grass. I'll give it a quick mow first. patches look darker from the fresh topsoil put down, I use seeds from the same batch, so this will blend in a month or so. You can see here the fresh shoots poking through the topsoil. So the final step in this lawn transformation is to apply some fertiliser. The grass needed sort of 5 to 6 weeks to get fully established before applying fertiliser. We're now in the beginning of October. Ideally this would have been best done in September, although the grass is still growing now. Hopefully there's enough time before the cold sets in for winter. So let's get straight to it and apply the fertiliser. I'm going to be using this Evergreen Easy Spreader Plus. Fertiliser is definitely something that should not be applied by hand. I tried this in the past and the garden looked like a patchwork quilt afterwards. I'm using the Evergreen Complete 4-in-1. This 12.6kg bag was £20 from Amazon when I bought it. I've linked to it in the description for reference. To ensure the correct coverage, the instructions suggest to set the Easy Spreader to number 4. I'm cutting a small tab off the corner of the bag, so after applying, I can seal it up to use next year. Make notes people as I show you how not to apply fertiliser. First, I should have checked the wheels moved freely before filling the hopper. The wheel connected to the roller is struggling to spin because it must have rusted or clogged since the last time I used it. Second, I'm missing applying it to the very edge of the lawn where the moss is most prone to grow. Make sure you have around 1/3 of the spreader over the edge. You can then sweep away any overspray from patio slabs. If you leave it there, once wet, the fertiliser turns orange and stains. I'm having to push the spreader down firmly to ensure the roller is rotating. I didn't have to do this when I first used it. Apply in straight lines. When you get to the end, rotate the spreader on its wheel, which should ensure you cover the entire lawn and don't end up with streaks in between.
So you saw how much I filled it up before I started. This is how much is left after covering that sized lawn.
If I zoom in here, you can see how much fertiliser has been applied. So it's a month after applying the fertiliser and you can see I did a rubbish job of applying it. It's looking very green where I did apply it properly, but at least this is highlighting what difference it does make. As well as being greener, you can see it has also grown thicker and quicker in comparison. A final mow to see what it looks like once cut and level. For an amateur, I think that's turned out well. Not perfect, but a lot better than what it did look like before. To go from this to this. In relation to how much this cost, here is an itemised breakdown. Moss killer was £15, but I only used £3 worth of it for this project. The Spear & Jackson 5 litre garden sprayer was £11. The Scarify I borrowed from a family member for free. The Wallenzi aerator was £30. 5 kilograms of grass seed was £27. The topsoil cost £80, which consisted of 20 bags at £4 each. The Evergreen Complete 4-in-1 fertiliser was £20, but I only used about £10 worth. The total cost for the tools that I didn't own was £41. The materials consumed for this project was £120. In all, this was a cost-effective way to get my lawn looking much better than it did, and hopefully the work carried out will last, as well as making it easier to maintain in the future.
Well guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribing's free, and it just means that any future videos I release will automatically appear on your feed without you having to search for them. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again on the next video.